Hi everyone! I have part one of a two-part hip series coming at you. You can do them separately the way that I filmed them, or you can do them together once they're both available for you because they're a nice combination. Today it's going to be more loose, natural movement, non-technical flow, and next time will be a little bit more technical and a little bit more lungy. So it's a fun combo. Let's get started. We're going to start with some side-lying hip cars. My favorite setup for this is with a pair of yoga blocks, one under my head and one to squeeze in front of me. But I also like just holding my hands to squeeze. If you want some extra irradiation, you can take a pair of socks, which I recommend over a ball, though you could use a ball too, and just grab it behind your calf and squeeze it into the back of your thigh. So that'll give you some extra hamstring work. For your setup here, you want to think about your ribs lifting up off the ground. You've got some abdominal engagement. We are going to be working a warm-up level car, so that's kind of a mid-level car, more challenging than your morning car, so hopefully this is the second time you've done them today. And you want to firm yourself up, set your irradiation, press your top hand into your bottom hand and your bottom leg into the ground, and once again, keeping your abs engaged, start bringing your hip into flexion, bringing your knee towards your chest. Now you're going to abduct your leg like swinging open a door. Reach the very end of your abduction and then slowly start internally rotating. So that's going to bring your heel up towards your head. Your knee's going to point down as you sweep it around and back behind you. Reaching all the way back into extension. You're here thinking about pulling your belly button and pubic bone together to keep your back out of it. Enjoy the hamstring cramping that might result from this, and knees come together. And then you're going to reverse. We're going to do 3 hip cars here. Do them on your own time, but do them nice and slowly. And I'm going to talk about what to think about during your hip car overall. So with every car, you want to be thinking about trying to increase your range of motion with each full circle. So it may or may not actually happen, but your goal should always be to make your cars kind of the biggest circle you can every single time, trying to squeeze maybe even a notional millimeter out of your joints each time, a new notional millimeter every single time. You're really working on maintaining your irradiation and taking your brain into your hip joints. So you want to focus your attention on what's happening right here as you're going through the movement. Think about working the closing side of the joint. So the shortening side of the joint, which is always moving here, is also what's working the hardest. So you really want to go slowly so that you can really bring your brain into that part of the car that's working. And meanwhile, you're trying to set your irradiation. So because this is a warm-up car, we're at a mid-level of irradiation, so our bodies are quite tense, maybe a 70 to 80% tension, and we're working our hips through this cold, sticky maple syrup. We're really trying to add effort to this. You're not just slopping through it. And we're going nice and slowly, so gravity is going to add to your work here as well. Hopefully your hip is already feeling a little bit warmer. Keep squeezing your sock if you're using a sock. Keep your abs engaged. Keep your upper body strategy going. It's easy to forget about your upper body, especially as you get deeper into your sets and reps. And let's switch over and do the other side. So you could, if you wanted to, keep your legs straight on the ground for this. I like having my bottom leg bent. I just find it's a more stable position. You could go like that too. Making sure your abs are picking up from the ground, your ribs aren't slopping down on the ground, you've got some engagement there. It's very like if you just turned your standing self sideways. Squeezing your object behind your knee if you were using it. Coming into hip flexion. 3 super slow, higher effort hip cars on this side as well. You're really trying to maintain that pelvic stability as you circle through this movement. Watch in the back that your tailbone doesn't reach into extension. You want to keep your abs nice and tight here. As your knees come together, you can relax for a second, and you're going right back into extension, so you're not letting go of that abdominal work. As you come through the side, the tendency is to pull the waist short, so you're going to keep that side of your pelvis long as you circle through and back into flexion. And again, your spine is not allowed to help you out here. This is all about the hip. So now I've lost count. I'm pretty sure that was 2. You're doing 3 on your own time anyway. but I am trying to do them a little bit slowly, just to give you a sense of how of a speed that's appropriate to do them. So you can do them at your own speed. You could even do 4 or 5 while I'm doing my 3, but in general, slow is helpful here because it's going to help your brain connect into your hip, and it's going to help you find those corners, those bits that are harder for you to work on, and squeeze out a little bit more effort, a little bit more of that range of motion. You're really trying to get into those cells and tissues that you never use. All right. I'm going to do one more here because I think I've done 3, but I might have only done 2, and it's always better to do extra than not enough. So if this is an extra one, then just think that your left hip is getting an extra good movement treat this morning. Or in this afternoon, whenever you're watching this. I filmed both classes actually the other day, and I didn't like the sound quality, so I'm reshooting this. So this is actually the 3rd time I've done this class in the last 3 days, and I have to tell you, my hips are feeling super buttery, so that's pretty nice. All right, we're going back to our first side here, and we're going to do some capsule cars. So back into the same side lying setup, same amount of irradiated tension through your abdomen, your body is straight. You're taking your object behind your knee if you're using it. You're setting up your upper body. You're pressing into the ground. And what you're going to do is you're going to come into hip flexion. And then you're going to come into your full hip abduction. So that's opening up like a door, but not rotating. You're going to stay here. And now you're going to do axial capsule cars here. So this is your full abduction. So what you're going to do is you're going to internally rotate your top thigh nice and slowly. It may not go very far in this position. Then you're going to squeeze at the top. You're going to hold for about 3 seconds. Then you're going to externally rotate. And remember, that's that thigh bone rotating externally. Squeeze it all the way down. Try to get a little bit further at the bottom. Hold it there. You're going to go for 5 of these. As you travel, imagine that you're moving through maple syrup. So you're really working to travel. You could imagine there's an elastic band pulling your ankle into external rotation as you internally rotate. Try to get a little bit further at the end and then reverse into external. Same deal, moving through honey, moving with effort, pressing into the end of the movement. This is a challenging exercise. It's a working exercise. This is a good way to get very precise with your work because you're using such a small range of motion. And this is really great to do some extra warm-up work or even some extra cool-down work. We're not using it that way today, but if you want to sort of save the mobility gains you're making, capsule cars are a great tool for that. And now, of course, I've lost count again. I guess the downside of me not counting is that I have no idea what's going on anymore. I think I'm around 4. Hopefully you're at around 4. You're working through effort. You're emphasizing a 3-second extra push at the end. You're not going to maybe go anywhere. You're just trying to go somewhere. Last external round. Really try to externally rotate any amount. And then you can just bring your hip down through flexion and back to where you started. Let's switch sides. Yeah, capsule cars are great. So if you're working on hip stuff, adding a few capsule cars to your daily cars is, or really any of your joints, adding a few capsule cars for that joint to your daily cars is a really great idea. Okay, so upper body is set up, ribs are lifted, abs are lifted, irradiating to about 70%, pressing your hands into the ground, bringing your knee into flexion, bringing your knee up towards your chest without your spine moving. Opening your leg up like a barn door, squeezing your sock behind your knee if you've got one, and then stopping here, and now you're axially rotating. So internally rotating, knee to hip rotates without moving in space, and then rotates into external. And what you're going for here is there shouldn't be any vertical movement of your knee. It shouldn't drop down at all. I want you thinking pig on a spit here. You're just literally moving your femur on its axis in your hip. And you're moving with effort, moving through that imaginary thick jello-like substance, pressing into your end ranges for about 3 seconds, not letting your hip drop, not letting your body move. Really working to have as much control, fluidity, and smoothness through this hip as you possibly can. And we're going for about 5 reps, nice and slow. Your own speed though, so if you get 6 while I do whatever number I'm doing, that's fine. I'm trying for a notional 5. I need to have like a counter of some sort, don't I? It really is a skill to count and teach at the same time, and I don't know how many teachers truly have it unless they're like not talking about stuff while they're counting. My brain only has so many channels in it. All right, squeeze out one more internal rotation here, one more external rotation, and then you can come down into flexion and return your hip to neutral. And you're done your cars for the day, so we're gonna move into some stuff that's a little bit less technical, maybe a little bit, well, I like the cars. This is enjoyable too though. So a little more move natty. You are going to start either in kneeling. If kneeling isn't comfortable for you, you could try a quadruped, but we're going to be doing an extended half kneel. So what we want to be doing is stepping forward and then pressing our knee forward. You could maybe bolster the back knee if that doesn't work for you, or you could just keep your back knee up completely. So a few options there. I'm going to keep my knee on the ground. And we're all going to take our right leg and just reach forward with the right knee. Like I said, we're being super loosey-goosey here. So you're just noticing what happens when you drop your pelvis down and lunge forward. You're welcome to put your hands on the ground here, and you might want to put your hands onto a pair of yoga blocks as an option too. You can take your back knee off the ground, and you can swivel your pelvis side to side a little bit. I guess sway, maybe not swivel. And then let's switch sides. So stepping back with as much control as you can with that first side, stepping forward for me with the left, coming down, noticing how this feels. How does it feel in the front hip, and how does it feel in the back hip? You're getting some interesting loads for both sides here. So right now we're just exploring and noticing. My right hip's been a bit funky recently, so it's kind of interesting feeling it like this. It feels really nice actually. So yeah, just spend a second in either hip or both hips, and then stepping back slowly in with control, or as much control as you've got. It's a tough move to do in a controlling way. Now, if you'd like to, you can add a reach to this. So you're reaching straight forward as you're doing this extended lunge. That'll bring the emphasis to the front hip, so you want to avoid pinching there. If you are feeling pinching, you could reach up instead and see if that helps. And then stepping backwards, other leg comes forward, either reaching straight forward or reaching up here. Both are good. Sinking into the front hip. This is your squat prep, right? So, most of us are going to be working on getting more hip flexion in our squat, and this is a nice place to give our front hip some extra squatting input without having to do a full squat. Last one, stepping forward with the right leg, maybe some rotational reaching. So you could try reaching with both arms, different directions. Up and away feels pretty nice. Over. So I invite you to explore your own ranges here. There's no magic. Just see how your body feels. These are all various ways to move. None is bad. We tend to use some specific ones more than we should. That's what we're trying to change here. So be a little bit programmatic with making sure you're using both arms and reaching in both directions. Reaching up with both arms, noticing how that feels in your hips, because of course your arms are connected to your hips. And then stepping back, like so. All right, so now we're gonna move into a cross-legged sit. I really prefer to set up my cross-legged sit with the bottoms of my feet on the ground rather than the sides of my feet on the ground. And we've talked about this in previous classes, but just as a reminder, you want to put that sole of your foot on the ground because that's not going to smush the pinky toe side of your foot and your shin as much. I like to have my feet fairly close to me for this one. And I prefer this unbolstered because I get a better load to my hips, but you could put a half dome or a bolster under your butt here. I don't mind if your low back is flexed here. You're gonna start by reaching your ASIS forward any amount, and then reach the rest of you forward and reach towards the end of your yoga mat. Feel how that feels for your hips. Hopefully awesome. Then you're going to switch sides with your legs. Reach forward. Take a nice deep breath in this reach. Deep breath into the back ribs and exhale. And then switching sides, reaching forward. Switching sides, reaching forward. Once more on each side. Reaching forward. I love reaches. I just find the kind of the juicy deliciousness of using your whole body that way is it's unmatched by anything other than maybe hanging. Nice big reach. Ah, so good. Okay, moving from there into side bent sit rotational reach. I'm just going to show you each movement before we do it together. So we're going to start with our left leg forward, left hand posts, right hand reaches rotationally around. Then we're going to switch sides, right hand posts, left hand reaches rotationally. Then back to the left hand, posting, right hand dives under, and finally right hand posts, left hand reaches up. Okay? So now for the real thing, left hand posts behind your left butt cheek. Reach with your right hand. Notice how that twist and reach starts with your rib cage and then pulls your right hip with it. So you could keep your right hip planted, just reach with your hand, and then allow your right hip to come and just kind of break that up a little bit if you wanted to notice the differentiation between your spine rotating and your pelvis and hips rotating. Then other side. Right hand plants by your right butt cheek, spine rotates towards the right, and your arm kind of pulls even further towards the right. Your scapula are wide here. There's a little bit of everything happening. Take a deep breath into your rib cage. You'll maybe find some tight spots that need to be breathed into. And then right hand comes off, left hand comes in front of the left knee. Reach your right hand all the way under towards the back corner of your mat. Breathe here into your rib cage, into any spots that feel tight to you. And then finally, right hand plants by your right butt cheek. Lift up your pelvis. Reach straight up into the air here. This is like the giddy up pose. I always like this one. And breathing there. And then the other thing you could try here is a true rotational reach. So your hand then comes kind of around shoulder level and reaches around. And you can see how that feels instead of the up in the air move. So you can kind of try either of those and see how they feel for your body. And then why don't we come down? We're going to do one of those on the other side as well. So let's transition intentionally. So to start with here, maybe even take your socks and pin them under your left knee. Then take your right leg and slowly, with effort and intention, open it up. Reach it away from the ground. Pull that leg towards the far side of your mat without letting your left knee move. And eventually your pelvis is going to come along with the right hip. And eventually it's going to really want to move your left knee. And so let it, at that stage, start pulling your left knee into the movement. Right knee comes all the way down. And with control, imagining someone's pulling your knee, not letting it lower. You could even add a little resistance. I'm trying to pull my knee that way, but my knee is winning and it's coming all the way to the ground. I'm just going to rotate so you can see me. Same exercise. Right hand posts by your right butt cheek. Twist your rib cage, but keep your left butt cheek planted to start. And then allow your left side to rotate as well. Your left side, your left butt cheek, your left leg. Reach here and breathe. And coming back to where you started. Then your left hand plants by your left butt cheek. Your right hand reaches. This side of it, this particular part of the move, only the spine really wants to move. I don't get any hip that tries to help out, which makes it a really nice one for breathing into my right side, I find. So take advantage of that. And then right hand plants by the right knee, reaching your hand through, breathing here, coming back up, and doing the giddy up. So pressing down hard into the ground, reaching up, breathing probably into the right side ribs again is where you're going to really notice it. Super nice. And then for fun, try making it a rotational reach instead of an upward reach. So your arm crosses around shoulder level, reaches behind you. See what that feels like. See which one you prefer. Go back to the top one if you like. And then coming straight down. We are going to finish up here with a really quick squat prep. So for this one, you want to think knees wide, toes tucked under. That's your toe extension, so it's nice to practice when you're squatting. And you want a neutral pelvis, ribs lifted up. So ribs are not sagging down like so. And then keeping your ribs and pelvis in their neutral spot, you're going to travel back as far as you can without allowing your lower back to round out. Using a mirror or your hands to do your best to keep fairly neutral here, sinking into deep hip flexion, hanging out here for a second. And then we're going to try a couple of little swaying movements side to side. So hips turn, they don't turn, they slide to the right, they slide to the left. Exploring that range of motion just a couple of times because it feels so good. I love this exercise. And it's super a nice way to get some squatting loads into your hips without the full work of a squat. I think it's much more realistic to do this kind of dynamic squat prep once you're comfortable with the basic movements of squatting, because a truly living squat is quite a dynamic movement. You'd be cooking over a fire or preparing vegetables or something in a real life squat. So you'd be moving. Plus you just get a ton more tissues this way. Of course, each tissue gets less time under tension, so there's always a trade-off, right? All right, let's come out of there. You are done. If you would like to be not done, you could always add a couple more hip cars because they're good to finish these things with. They really consolidate your work. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that. I would definitely try for your real life practice this week doing your morning hip cars as a side lying hip car, and consider adding the sock behind the knee and those axial rotations to see if that is a good way to challenge your hips for the next little while. Okay, see you in the next class.